Hello, this is Colin Murray, Executive Director with Staying by Local. Glad you're able to watch this video today. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I bet you weren't aware of that, were you? Now you are. And so we have asked Denise Jess from the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired to join us to talk about accessibility and specifically digital accessibility. So welcome, Denise.
Colin, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm really excited.
Oh, great. We're glad you're able to join us. We're glad that you're one of our members of Dane by Local, and we have almost 100 nonprofit organizations that are part of Dane by Local. So we really appreciate you being part of our organization and supporting the cause. So as I mentioned, specifically, we want to talk about digital accessibility today. And digital really covers a wide range of things, websites, mobile, social, video, even Zoom. So, and I have to admit a little thing here. As far as Zoom is concerned, when I scheduled this meeting with you, I did not have our accessibility links set up correctly in Zoom. So unfortunately, this is not going to be a good example of what you should be doing as far as accessibility is concerned. But I've now fixed that for future meetings. So bear with me, sorry about that. But maybe you can go into this a little bit as far as digital accessibility is concerned. Why is it so important?
You bet. Well, first, I'm going to tell you that YouTube is going to support you with the closed captioning when you upload there. So your viewers will be able to see captioning by hitting their CC button after the video is up from Zoom onto YouTube. YouTube automatically populates closed captioning. So that's a really cool thing that YouTube does regularly. It can go in and be edited so that you can really clean up the text, but it's really, they were some of the leaders in making sure that video was accessible for folks that would benefit from the captioning. So yeah, digital accessibility covers so many things for those of us with disabilities. So in full disclosure, I am a person who is legally blind, which means that I have a bit of functional vision, and that I use tools on a moment-by-moment basis throughout my life to create greater access and ease of daily activities. And so when I'm in the digital space, which would be so many of the things that you named, doing my email, reading spreadsheets, doing anything that's computer-based, surfing the web, filling out web-based forms, doing social media, participating in digital or electronic meetings, virtual meetings, and using YouTube. I'm using a tool called a screen reader. And the screen reader interfaces with the content on the screen, and it translates it using artificial intelligence into a voice. So I am hearing essentially everything that is on my screen. So folks who have vision loss, folks with significant reading related disabilities or learning disabilities or cognitive disabilities often find a screen reader a really liberating tool for having access, more equitable access to digital media. So the screen reader, does all that translation, but what's required is that the creators of that content build in a way that the screen reader can come into the space and play with it. So when we think about web-based content, for example, often there'll be graphics or pictures on a website. And if those aren't properly coded by the web developer, when my screen reader interacts with them, the artificial intelligence isn't so wonderful that it can interpret that picture without some guidance from the creator. So I might hear in my screen reader, if there were a picture of two kids throwing a ball back and forth, the artificial intelligence would make its very best guess about what's pictured, and it might be pretty close or it might be dramatically off base. So the web creator has to go in and set something called alt text and tell the screen reader what the picture is and describe it in very simple, clear form. And then when I interact with it, I'm like, oh, okay, got it. There's two kids, throwing a ball back and forth. And so that all has to be done manually. So that's just one example of where the interface between access technology and designers, where they have to mesh and move into collaborative space.
Wow, that's something I would have never even thought about. And do you find that most web developers are aware of that sort of need in the market to manipulate photos so that you can understand what's taking place?
We would like to say yes. There are worldwide web accessibility guidelines that all web developers should know about and should be following. And they're really fantastic. They're easily findable by doing a web search under web accessibility guidelines, or WCAG3, and just following that, and then going through the proper testing, because oftentimes folks will use a tool that will just automatically test for the making sure that the guidelines are being adhered to, but never ask someone who is an actual access technology user if the website is really accessible. So step one is that the web developer and designer needs to know about those guidelines. Step two is to design for them. Step three is to not just rely on the artificial intelligence testing tools, but if possible, actually work with folks who are native users of access technology, because we can often tell you, yeah, it passed the guidelines, but here's where it's hitting some barriers for access. So more and more, I would say web developers are becoming more aware and building for accessibility. When 6-7 years ago, there were folks who could say they could do it but didn't really quite know, and now it's much more a part of people's toolkits. Gotcha. And it's on us as organizational leaders too, when we are contracting with someone to do our web design, or we're asking for that design to be done by a member of our staff, to set accessibility as an expectation during the build, and to lead for inclusivity in that way.
Yeah, and that makes total sense that you would want to have that. And I'm sure many of our viewers watching now, this just hasn't even occurred to them to try to incorporate those sorts of things. And it's more than just photos. Can you give some other examples as far as the website? What else should be looked at? Sure.
So there are definitely folks who have very significant vision loss or very significant disabilities. And then there are folks who have what we would call low vision. So when we're designing for inclusivity, we want to think about our low vision users as well. And in the state of Wisconsin, there are about 100,000 adults who have vision loss that's significant enough where accessing a computer screen is more difficult. So when you're building, it's thinking about how busy is that page? Is it that there's stuff flying in and flying out, animations. Those animations can be really distracting or confusing for folks with different kinds of disabilities, even folks, that have, epilepsy triggers that could be really distracting or disturbing. So kind of, thinking about the careful use of those, or even reducing them, or pop-ups where, you have to hit the little X to close that pop-up. If the contrast on the little X isn't good enough, there are times that it's like, I don't know how to close that pop-up so I can actually access your website. The WCAG guidelines also call for a certain level of contrast so that the difference between the light and the dark text and background is high enough so that folks can see. And a lot of web designers are putting a little button, and it usually sits in the upper right-hand corner of the website, that the user can click to increase the font size on the in the display on the web page. That's an awesome tool. Or even flip the contrast. So if the background is white, you can flip it to black, and then the lettering becomes white. And for some folks with disabilities, that change in contrast makes it so much more accessible. So that's an easy plug-in to put those couple of buttons on. Many folks with disabilities who either are using screen readers or other forms of access technology, maybe they're using an eye pointer to navigate a screen, or some kind of touchpad or a pointer that might rest on the forehead to access the keyboard. We might not use a mouse, and so many things are driven by the mouse. So when folks are building, could this website be navigated by someone who doesn't use a mouse, who uses a keyboard or uses another form, another tool to interact with the page? And so if it's all mouse driven, then we're not going to make it very far through your web page.
So there are organizations, businesses here in Madison that actually can help people with their website if they need help in cleaning them up. I know my neighbor works for Employment Resources, and that's what she does as a graphic designer, is she goes in and cleans up websites, helps with contrast, and helps with font sizes, and make sure that the type is appropriate so that it makes it easier to read for low vision readers out there. So again, things that we just don't think about on a regular basis. So it really can be very helpful to someone in your situation.
Yeah, and I think, most folks, you said it earlier, and I want to emphasize it, that most, that if you don't know what you don't know. So, folks who are designing their websites or want a new website for their business, if you don't know about these things, it's, not ill intent, so I really recognize that. So having that awareness, and then having the folks who can really help you achieve your goals, because the assumption I make is that organizations and business want to welcome me and other folks with disabilities, to your services. And so, is your website accessible? Does it send a message of welcome? And working with folks who know how to build. And when you're interviewing a web designer, asking them that question of, what experience do you have building for accessibility? Can you show me, some sites in your portfolio that demonstrate this really well? And just adding that to your interview questions.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Now, talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Council for the Blind and Visually Impaired. What do you folks do there?
So the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired is a statewide organization. I'm very proud that we are celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. Our mission is to promote the dignity and empowerment of people living throughout Wisconsin who experience vision loss. And we do that in three primary functions. One is advocacy on the policy level. Second is education, and third is vision services. So our original founders believed very strongly that policy needed to reflect the day-to-day needs of people with vision loss, to create stronger avenues to employment and education and healthcare, long-term care, civil rights, and access to transportation, since we're primarily non-drivers. And that is something that has lived on in our legacy. And I'm very proud of our advocacy work, both in working with state government and also in helping folks on the grassroots level to grow their advocacy chops so they can be effective, both state and local, and on the federal level as well. And then education through opportunities like this to speak with, the general public to help create bridges of understanding between our community and the wider community. And then education with folks who are losing their sight. So the majority of folks that we work with on a regular basis are folks who might have had typical or normal sight throughout a good portion of their life, but in, that sometime during the adult years start to experience vision loss through disease or injury or genetic disorder. And that's a big adjustment to go from being sighted to living with vision loss. So really supporting folks on that journey and their families as well. And then the last thing that we do is teach people the skills of vision loss, teach people the skills of blindness. It's a whole skill set of how to do activities of daily living, really with a lot of robustness and fulfillment, safety, and how to, make changes in your employment, workplace to continue working or change career if you need to change career, and and how to navigate safely on our streets, learn to use public transportation, all of those things. We have a small brick and mortar store that we sell adaptive devices and equipment, anything that ranges from a small item like a raised dot that you can put on your microwave buttons to orient yourself to the microwave keypad, to more expensive items that can enlarge screen, what you see on a piece of paper so that it's easier to read your mail or the newspaper, a whole variety. And in addition to that brick and mortar, of course, we have a web-based store. And the last thing I'll say about our work is that we distribute free white canes to anybody in the state of Wisconsin, because we see the white cane as such an important tool for independence, and also signaling to other folks that, you're a person experiencing vision loss, so that people can, offer support as is appropriate. So that's the short version of what we do and we're based here in Madison, though we have that statewide footprint.
Well, it sounds like you and your staff are doing a lot of activities throughout the state here. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Such an important service that you're providing to the communities here. Where is the store located?
So our offices are located at 754 Williamson Street, so right at the corner of Livingston and Willie Street. And so many folks have gone by our business over the years and said, "Oh yeah, I see you there. I've never gone in. I wondered what you do." So my invitation is for folks to stop by if you're in the Willie Street neighborhood, during business hours, 8:30 to 4:30, pop into our store. It's on the first floor of our building. What we often hear from folks as they visit is, "Oh, wow, I could use that." We have like oven mitts that go way high up on the arm, which, not only for those of us with vision impairment while we're cooking are helpful. We have chefs from local restaurants that buy them from us because they are so incredibly helpful. Or one day our banker was in to visit, and she looked at our magnifying mirrors and she's like, "Well, that's both awesome and terrifying at the same time, but I'm getting one of those to be able to apply my makeup." So there's, those activities of daily living kind of tools built for accessibility that folks without vision loss can often find helpful. And so many of us know people in our lives who are experiencing vision loss, especially with macular degeneration and retinopathy from diabetes and glaucoma. Those things are all on the rise as our population ages. So thinking about grandma or mom or dad and what might be some really useful, helpful tools for them. I'll do one last quick plug. If you are out and about for Madison Museum of Contemporary Arts Gallery Night, we just had one in the city, but there's another one in November. We often participate in that. We have for about the last 11 or 12 years. And we feature artists who live with vision impairment in our gallery. So as that event rolls around in the fall, check to see if we're participating live or virtual And if we're live, stop in that evening as well to meet those artists and see their incredible work.
Oh, that's very cool. I like that. Well, one thing you don't realize is I have a connection to the art world here in Madison. Yeah, gallery night is November 5th.
Thank you for knowing the date.
I just checked it the other day because you're right. It just happened a couple of weeks ago here. So it's like, okay, when's the next one? So yeah, it's a great event. So thank you for supporting the art world here in the area as well. That's appreciated. So how can people contact you?
We are available on the web, so wcblind.org. And our website is, I think, a really good example of an accessible website. So go in and play there. And you can email us at info@wcblind.org. And if you want to speak with me directly, DJess, DJESS at wcblind.org. We're also on social media. So we have a very active Facebook presence. We publish posts nearly every day. And those posts are accessible as well. And I'll circle back to what does it mean to have social media posts that are accessible. But we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn for kind of our business profile and things that are happening, kind of in the accessibility world that might be of interest to employers. And we have an active, really robust YouTube channel as well. We have not gone to TikTok because it is not yet a very accessible platform.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Twitter too, as I think about it, by picturing our logos, and Twitter is also a tool that we use particularly for our advocacy work.
Sure, you actually do a better job on social media than we do. So that's all those different opportunities out there as far as social media is concerned. So, well, thank you. This has been very enlightening to talk with you today and to learn more about accessibility, and happy Global Accessibility Day. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
That you'd like to share with us before we go?
Yeah, I think just one quick thing, because I know we do use social media so frequently in all of our organizations and businesses. So if you, and social media has gotten really smart about accessibility. So when I use my tools, oftentimes those posts will be read. So again, alt tagging or alt texting, and you can do that through the settings to make sure that your images are also accessible, or even putting in the post body itself an image description. So it's pretty simple to make social media accessible. And by doing so, you send a really strong message that I would be welcome to engage with your business.
How important is that? That's great advice. So thank you. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate the time that you've carved out today. And I'm sure we'll be talking with you again shortly.
Colin, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Great. Have a good day.
You too.